Hey, we're outside. It's the end of the session. We just got done going over a little fetch game for Oakley here, who's a very excitable puppy. And this is Molly, and she's just kind of slobbering and sniffing and doing what she does because she's got a lot of Basset in her. This is their roadmap to success. So basically, I think you have multiple issues here. First of all, we have Oakley, who is very high energy. He's a 1-year-old lab. He's only been in the house for a couple months and is definitely not getting enough exercise. Dogs need a minimum of 1 hour of exercise a day. High energy dogs like this, that are especially in a puppy age, are going to need closer to 2, sometimes 3 hours of energy. Now, if you're getting a dog, take into account the dog you want to get's energy level. Most people pick dogs the way we date. That's a good looking dog, I'll get that dog. Well, this dog is great if you have a very active lifestyle. But if you work a lot and you have a small house and you have a busy schedule, or you're too tired when you get up from work, getting a dog that's going to be more mellow like Molly here, that's just going to lay and lick your face, puts both of you in a position to succeed. I was telling the Guardians I'm writing an article, I haven't published it yet, for my editor. I write a dog behavior advice column, and it's titled, "Do You Love Your Dog Enough to Rehome It?" I have seen a lot of people who get a very high energy dog like this, and they don't provide it the exercise that it needs, and it starts acting out. It's not doing anything bad, it just starts chewing or jumping or nuisance problems. And then after a while, it starts getting destructive or getting aggressive or other behavior problems. And when people talk to it and they say, "Hey, your dog's way too excited," they're like, "You should think about rehoming." They're like, "I would never do that. I'm loyal to my dog." Well, then the dog ends up not getting the energy it burned, and then sometimes other bad behaviors start manifesting. And a lot of times, I've seen this, and it's a sad case where eventually people say, now the dog's aggressive or it's destroying my house, now I can't deal with it anymore, and then they take to a shelter. Now the dog a lot of times has an aggression or a psychological problem that is very difficult to solve. And a lot of these shelters are so understaffed and under resources that they euthanize the dog. So you have a dog that is a beautiful dog. Hey buddy, come. That is a high energy dog that would have been great for somebody who's a runner or has a more active lifestyle. I don't know if that's the case here. It's something I talked to the Guardians about, and I want them to start an exercise journal for a month. So they're going to write down the time and the exercise, how long the walk was. They can do things like getting the dog a doggy backpack and filling it with water bottles or sand or stuff like that before. You can also toss treats down the stairs or play a game of fetch before the walk to deplete the dog's excess energy, and then go for the walk, and that'll make the walk a little bit more efficient. But for the exercise journal, write down the time and how long the walk was. If we play fetch, count the number of times that you throw it and put that down in the exercise journal. Google scent games. That's a great way for dogs to burn excess energy, especially for Molly, because she's not a super high energy breed. She'll use her brain, and that's very draining for dogs as well. If they chase a laser or whatever it is. And then basically, anytime that there is a resource guarding issue or a fight, or the dog gets barky or steals something or whatever, then we want to write down that stuff in the exercise journal as well as the times. After a while, we'll start noticing trends. If it's longer than this many hours before the dogs get exercise, that's when they get a fight, or this happens or that happens. Now, I'd like the Guardians also to interpret that anytime that Oakley starts stealing things or jumping up, that's his way of saying, "Hey, I have too much energy. Can you take me outside for a game of fetch or for a walk or whatever it is?" Come up with some creative ways to burn excess energy and sprinkle them throughout the day. Dogs typically need, like I said, an hour's worth of exercise. He's probably closer to 2 hours, but it's 4 or 5 practice sessions sprinkled throughout the day as opposed to just one long walk in the morning. Let me see. The dogs also didn't have any rules or boundaries, and so I kind of went over the importance of rules and how adding that structure can help us act like a leader in the dog's eyes. Dogs are all about what they see us do, and when we go to work, and the Guardians here work really hard, when they come home they're tired, and the dogs don't get to see them working. And so when the Guardians come home, they sit, they sleep, and they eat. And that's all the dog sees us do, and it seems like, well, you don't seem to be acting like a leader, so I'm not going to respect you like a leader. Dogs don't respect us because we're humans, or we adopted them, or we provide a house to live in. It's through our actions. So the more we enforce rules consistently, the more the dogs start to see us acting like leaders. Now, these are not arbitrary rules that I come up with. I have rules that have specific meanings for the dog. One of the first rules, is more of an issue for Molly, is not allowing her on the furniture because she does guard one of the chairs. Well, if she's resource guarding something, we want to remove that item. The Guardians figured this out for all the toys, but not for the chair. So we're just going to put the X pad on that chair, or X mat, so that Molly can't get in that chair anymore. The video above is going to cover all the resource guarding, so we're not going to talk about that. But by not allowing the dogs in the furniture, they can't guard the resource, and also they don't see us as the same authority, because for dogs, the higher they sit, the more rank or social status that they have. So letting a dog sit at the same height as you is one of the ways that we say that we're equals and peers, but we're not. Another rule would be the dog has to sit before letting it in or out of a door. I go to the door and I say sit once. If the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away, sit down, and wait for the dog, wait for 1 minute, and then go back to the door and say it again. This time, if the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. I keep going the length of time until the dog eventually sits in the door. As soon as it does, I open the door and let that dog out. Now, if I tell him to sit and Molly sits and Oakley doesn't sit, then I would let Molly out and not let Oakley out. And do this with both, eventually with both directions. Now, because they've gotten into some fights, and the fights seem to be a tipping point when the dogs have too much excess energy, that could be dangerous. So we want to help the dogs practice that behavior separately, so that they learn, and eventually the dog just go sit at the door as its way of saying, I want to go outside. Well, sitting at the door is a pretty calm energy. So now we're teaching the dog the manners that we want them to demonstrate, and now they can start emulating those. Once the dogs both go to the door and sit quietly to ask their way out, then I would start doing it with both of them together. But make sure we set them up for success. Maybe before we do that, we take Oakley out and play a game of fetch, and let him, calm down, and then bring him back inside. Of course, you want to let him outside, so maybe we do something inside. We use the laser, we run him up and down the stairs a couple of times. Deplete that energy, and then let him recover, and then go to the door and practice that energy, or the exercise with depleted energy. Let me see. The Guardians also noticed that they get the Guardians at one point said, should we take him for a W? Or I think they started spelling out walk. If you have to spell out the word walk, then you should say the word walk 1,000 times a day. That is not in concert when you take the dog for a walk. That will break the association. That's an example of classical conditioning. Now, I went over an exercise on how to teach the dogs to stay calm during the leashing process. Now, the tips for this is to practice leashing your dog up several times a day without taking it for a walk. Now, in his case, he needs at least 1 walk a day, but if we leash him up 6 times a day, and only one of those 6 times do we go for a walk, now I'm not quite as excited when we get the leash out. I also showed the Guardians little tips, and you'll have to hire me to figure out these tips, but of basically stopping and starting again. I call this light switch on, light switch off. When the dog starts offering a behavior we don't want, we stop the process. When it continues doing the behavior we want, we continue the process. And if the Guardians are doing this consistently, they should notice within a week or so that the dogs stay completely calm, or much noticeably calmer, when we're going through the leashing process. But remember, when you stop is not when the dogs are bat stuff crazy, when they get 1% crazy, 1% energetic. Remember, excited is not necessarily happy for dogs. So teaching the dogs to be calm throughout all sorts of different behaviors when they get excited can help put them in a position to succeed. Will eliminate a lot of Molly's aggressive issues. I think she's trying to disagree, and his energy is out of control because he's just not getting anywhere close to the amount of exercise he needs. So all these things kind of are connected. Come. This is an example of what I call passive training. Passive training is waiting for the dog to do something organically on their own and without any influence from the human. When they do the completion of the act, I reward them. Right there, he came up the stairs. Well, that's a come. If he were to sit here, I'd pet him and say sit. If he lays down, I'd pet him and say crash, which is the word I use. Use funny command words, because dogs should read your facial expression. So I'm not offering or enticing the dog, I'm just monitoring, and when he does the thing that I want, I'm giving him my attention and my affection. Remember, affection and attention from you is validating, and they don't care so much if it's good attention or bad attention. So if you're yelling at me for jumping at the door, or you're praising me for sitting, as a dog, I don't see much difference between those two things. So start putting yourself in a dog in a situation to succeed by rewarding it for the desired actions and behaviors. Once the dog catches on, after enough repetitions, the dog will start offering those behaviors. Now, whenever possible, try to pet a dog under his chin. And I'm going to show you, this is how I make a dog sit. Sit. Now I lower it, let him lick the treat off my hand, and start petting him. Now, if he puts his paw on top of you, that's a dominance move, or overexcitement. So as soon as he puts his paw up, stop petting. But the preferred way is I'm petting him, and he's going to put his paw up here. I would try to stop petting him when his paw is here. Don't wait for it to get all the way here. The sooner you get to it, the easier it is. Like for the leash, most people wait for the dog to get somewhat calmer, or they don't stop when until the dog is really out of its mind crazy. if we stop when the dog gets 1% excited, that's much easier for the dog to calm down, and it doesn't take as long. And it's easier for us because we don't have to spend as much time waiting before we try it again. So do it as quickly as you can. Molly, I want to go over some warning signs for her. So if she freezes, if she bares her teeth, if she licks her lips, that could be a sign of stress. If you see her freeze in place or starts moving slowly, those can be warnings for him. If she breathes really fast or holds her breath, also warnings. So we want to recognize her signs and then stop or intercede before it gets to be a fight. So right now she's kind of chasing him, she's kind of following around a little bit. This is a behavior that I would kind of watch. I would step in between her and him. And don't let her get, I saw it coming. So she was starting to, so if you notice Molly while we're talking about these, Oakley, Molly, we're just going to hold you right here. So if you see her starting to kind of follow him around, she was bird dogging him essentially, and he kept on moving away. If he moves away and she won't let him, then we need to stop her from doing that. Otherwise, I think she thinks that she's in charge of this house because the humans didn't have any rules for her, and so she thinks he's out of control, which he is a little bit, but it's not her job to correct, and she's taking it too far, and she's got the resource guarding problem right here. Yes. Molly. So I want to redirect her attention into more of a positive. Molly, sit. Sit. I'm looking at her pupils because it's nice, and her pupils are now small. When they're enlarged, that can be an indicator as well. So again, if you see her following or going through any of the other warning signs that I just went over, breathing fast, holding their breath, being stiff, tail going up. Also, I'd like the guardians to start watching her tail at different things. When she's relaxed and happy, look at her tail. Start being able to read her tail. You know, when she's happy, her tail goes to the left and it's kind of a nice wide sweeping motion in the middle, parallel with her spine. When right before the issue, you know, when she gets into start chasing him, her tail is going straight up and quivering or whatever it is. You'll find after a while that you're going to start to be able to read her body language, and if you could stop her way before she actually gets to the fight, then it's going to be much easier for you. And we don't want her to practice this. So now I'm guessing this, I'm just guessing, but Oakley is next to the guardian and also next to the door. Molly. So you can use the similar principles that I talked about in the video above. If she doesn't like it when he's next to you or next to the door, then when he's there, I would maybe have him on a leash and her on a leash. And then when she does this, then have somebody over there throw a treat at her. It's the same principle I talked about there. If you get the book Mine by Jim Donaldson, hey, I don't think that's resource guarding. I think that's just being jerky. So you have two issues. So a resource guarding is going to be more with an object, a location, or a person. But his energy is kind of high, and you see she's kind of staring at him. Sometimes, you know, and she's got her mouth open. It could be called that dry panting. But if she's very focused on him, then we need a way to redirect her. The guardians might want to message me. If I forget to put it above, message me and ask me, and I'll add a focus exercise into the write-up. You might have seen a video that I've done. The guardians here have been watching my videos. But that teaches the dog to look at us and focus on us on command. So if she starts staring at him, and you've developed a strong focus command for her, and she's staring, you say, focus. You redirected her away from him, and you can stop this fight before it actually starts. Now, I also went over the importance of what I call petting with a purpose. The guardians were petting the dogs for no reason, or when the dogs were fearful, anxious, stressed, or excited. Remember, for dogs, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically rewarding it for. So if your dog is excited and you pet it, you're going to make it maybe a fifth of a percentage point more excited. Fearful, stressed, whatever, anxious, whatever it is. And so the idea is we want the dog to practice earning attention from us. So she comes up and scratches, I believe, and he jumps up or she barks. So when she comes up and barks, instead of doing what she wants, give her a counter order, tell her to sit. When she sits, pet her under her chin and say the word sit. Never pat a dog on top of the head. You can caress and you can scratch, just never reach. And for a lot of dogs, reaching over the head can create an insecurity and a reaction. Also, dogs feel good about themselves. Their nose is parallel to the ground or tilted upward. So if we get in the habit of petting the dogs, all things being equal, under their chin, that facilitates that nose up. And I want the dog to feel good about sitting, coming, and laying down. So if she comes up and nudges me, she wants me to pet her, I tell her to sit. Or she's already sitting, I ask her to come and sit over here or lay down. She has to do something to change her state. After a while, what she'll figure out is I can't tell the human what to do. I have to ask them. Not only do I have to ask, I have to pay for it. And I pay for it through a currency of obedience. So I'm going to come start sitting in front of the human to prepay for attention. Now, when that happens, make sure we recognize and reward that. I usually say recognize or reward if the other person missed it. And so otherwise the dog will go back to scratching or jumping or barking at you. But now the dogs start to know these are things that humans really like, because these are the times that humans pet me the most. And so now I'm going to become operant, is what we call it, or learning demand, where the dog says, I'm going to go sit in front of the human as my way of influencing the human's behavior, or sit in front of them to ask for attention. And the more they do that, the more they're going to continue to do that. Now, it's going to be really important that guardians enforce these rules consistently for at least 30 days. I don't know, I'm going 80 or 7. But for 30 days minimum. But as long as the problem is still going on, I would continue. Molly might be a dog that never gets back up in the furniture, but it might be something once we take over a resource guardian through the hand feeding and all the tricks that I went over in the above video, where she can go back to being on the furniture. But usually what I do is once the dog can start, I start giving them a green light to do that. It's not whenever they want, it's with an invitation, and only for good behavior. So if she's on the furniture and then she starts growling, she would have to get down. Now, if she's resource guarding, we don't want to force her because that's going to make it worse. What I would do is touch her nose with the treat, toss on the ground, make sure the other dog's not around, and let her get up and go get it. I really think the exercise is going to do a big, is going to really have a big impact here. But also the rules and then the positive reinforcement at appropriate times are going to help the dogs know what behaviors they do and don't want out of humans. Also, the guardians, I don't know what they're doing on the weekend, but on Saturday, I guess it's Friday, tomorrow, I'm doing a workshop on loose leash walking. And if they can make it to Omaha at 11 a.m., it's supposed to be a beautiful day, we can teach you how to do that. But for dogs, if they walk in front of us, they perceive themselves as being a leader. If we have 2 dogs walking together, they're both going to push to be in front. What I would like the guardians to do, if possible, once there's a fight, we have to break up the dogs and separate them, let them calm down. When they're calm, we'd like to get them back together as quickly as we possibly can. And what I usually do is I walk one dog here and one dog here. I don't let either dog walk in front. Now, some people don't have the skill to do that, or the dogs are too boisterous or aggressive or whatever. So you might actually have one guardian walking one dog and one guardian walking the other dog. The 2 humans are in the middle, the dogs on the outside, but they're walking together. I want the dog's last memory is not to be of the fight, but to be of walking and seeing the squirrel, or we both wanted to mark the fire hydrant they wouldn't let us mark, or all the rest of these things. But again, if you take the time to practice leashing your dog up several times a day, independent of taking them for a walk, and teaching them to be calm before we leave for the walk, you're going to find the walks are going to be much more enjoyable. Now, I would eventually start feeding the dogs together, but not at in the same room, but not together at the same time. Now, I recommend the guardian drill into one of the studs and get one of those eyelets, is that what it's called? And then, so we have basically a place where we can take a chain leash, tether it to the dog, and then the other dog is eating. We know that dog can't get to it. The dog gets to practice being in the room, seeing the other dog eat, but not being able to get close enough, because the dog's going to try to come close to us when we're eating to try to get that resource. Or, you know, if I'm a dog and I'm eating and another dog comes and gets really in my face, I might walk away and leave that food, and then that other dog can take the food. And that would be also something else, once we break Molly of the resource guardian, that would be great if we do have those on the 2 sides of the room like I talked about. Then you could put both dogs on the leash, give them both a bully stick, and help them practice chewing on their own bully stick in the room without being able to influence each other. Now, if Molly starts growling, that means we need to spend more time practicing the resource guardian. So we might have Molly on that tether, and then we might walk up with Oakley, and then when Molly has a bone, and as soon as she freezes, we stop, we toss the treat, and then Oakley and the handler walk away. So this way, you know, I talked about in the video, I guess I didn't talk about doing with the dog above, in the video above, but that's equally important. So make sure at first you walk it, but don't double it up unnecessarily. First get Molly used to you guys walking up to her just with one of you, or both of you. Then we bring the dog in. Once you can be petting her anywhere and she's eating and she doesn't growl, then we get to the point where we do that. And also make sure you do the drop when she has low value items. She needs time to practice having items separately. So when it's a nice day like today, put one dog outside with a bully stick, one dog inside with a bully stick. And dogs chew to self-soothe. When they're anxious, they chew. So we take away all the toys, we can keep them safe, but we're going to amplify that anxiety. So maybe schedule a time twice a day where the dog's going to be separated, and you're going to give both of them a toy or something they can chew on, so that get a practice doing that. Let me see. And also remember to recreate situations. I told the guardians, like, one of the rules is the dogs are not allowed to be within 7 feet of the humans who are eating. And the humans should eat something before they feed the dogs. Well, if we want to have, there we go. There's somebody walking by the house. Nobody's going to break into this house. Come. So basically, if one of the rules is they're not allowed to be in the kitchen, we can recreate the kitchen cooking. When we're actually cooking, we're distracted. So what we do instead is we go in the kitchen, make sure we move the dog out of the kitchen first, and then we back into the kitchen, and then we basically microwave a piece of, Molly, we microwave a piece of bacon, put it out on the counter, and then simulate cooking. So now, if the dog does something wrong, we can stop and immediately address it. But if we're really cooking, we try to teach the dog in the act of doing that, we're going to burn our pasta or whatever it is. And so we don't have as good timing. So make sure that you recreate situations, anytime the dogs fail, don't behave the way you want. Recreate that situation and remove as many elements as you can until it's the easiest scenario possible. Then help the dog practice the first step over and over until it does that first step perfectly each time. We could call this usually 5 for 5. 5 different practices, 5 times in a row, the dog does the right thing. Then I move it on the next step. And do that for each individual steps and of all the steps until the dog knows how to behave for each individual step. Then we string all the steps together again in the easiest capacity possible. And then we work our way back up to the real world situation. Once the dog can perform that way individually, then we bring the two dogs back together and we make it back an easy situation. But then they know how they're supposed to behave. And then we gradually build them back up until we get to that real world situation in the end where the dog feels comfortable and knows how to behave. Here, Molly. This is Oakley. This lackadaisical dog over here is such a good looking girl. She doesn't have to move very fast as Molly. And this is the roadmap to success. Remember,